Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to our panel, where we explore gender spaces in Nigerian Pentecostalism. Our panel aims to open up conversation around women musical practices in different contexts in and out of religious spaces. So this afternoon we have six-man panel. So we are going to rush through it because we have limited time. My name is Toyin Samuel Ajose. I'm the chair. We have 6 presenters. I will introduce them and then they will take up their presentation. Because of time, I will not be able to do any brief profile for anybody because of time. So the first person will be taking us on singing in spirit, gender and musical traditions in Nigerian University campus fellowships. Fellowships. That will be presented by Samuel Ayola Adejube from the University of Ibadan. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. If my PowerPoint can be shared. Thank you. My slides. Adejube. All right, thank you so much. I'm presenting on singing in spirit, gender and musical tradition in Nigerian University campus. My name is Samuel Adejube from the University of Ibadan. By way of introduction, campus fellowship refer to religious or spiritual groups formed by students on campus or university campuses. These campus fellowships are organized and coordinated by students themselves, though they might have little or more affiliation to their mother church, like if you are in MFMCF, Mountain of Fire Miracle Campus Fellowship, they have affiliation to Mountain of Fire Miracle Ministry, which is their mother church. But the leadership of that fellowship is being directed and controlled by students themselves. And that was why I looked at it that this campus fellowship, they have influence on students and they have influence on the activities of students on campus, whether academic activities or religious activities. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this study examined the roles of females as music leaders within Nigerian campus Pentecostal fellowship. Now, okay, I think the way I design, most of the initiators of these female Pentecostal fellowships are not head of churches. They are usually the wives of the head of their church. That statement by Atinike Abdulsalam in one of his a book, Roles of Women in Africa Initiated and Pentecostal Churches in Nigeria, 2020, was what started these research ideas in me that, yes, most of the women in Pentecostal fellowships in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, most of them are not head of churches. They are either wives of the GO, wives of the set pastor or the senior pastors. And anytime they organize programs, they are also set to be limited what they preach. Most of the time, they preach something that they have to submit to the head of the church. So, but these campus fellowships, the female in campus fellowships are not wives. They are not mothers. Some of them, most of them, majority of them are not wives. They are not mothers. They are students on campus. But their activity on campus sometimes they behave as if, because some of them their role to the head pastor, the student pastor. Sometimes you wonder whether they're performing these roles because some of these GenSec that are female vice president that are females. Some of them they cook food to the for the male president or male pastor in the fellowship, and that actually caught my curiosity. But being a musicology and trained as a musicology, I intend to use music within that campus fellowship spell, which are Pentecostal, and that's the concept of singing in the spirit, which are Pentecostal, to investigate. Can we go to the next slide, please? To investigate how these female leaders navigate gender expectation and carved out spaces of authority and influence through their musical gift and spiritual charisma. Now, the female leaders, how do they navigate gender expectation? Like I said the other time, that most of these campus female leaders, sometimes their contribution in the campus fellowship sometimes can be questioned, because they will leave their academics. Sometimes they come for VG rehearsals, they come for meetings, and they do several meetings. So how does this female leader, how did this gender expectation, how did they carve spaces of authority and influence through their musical charisma and spiritual musical gift and spiritual charisma? By way of literature review, this study examined take a clue from Adelakun, Performing Power in Nigeria, Identity, Politics, and Pentecostalism, that talk about Pentecostal. Obadari also, who talks a little about pop culture and Nigerian Pentecostalism. Then Olushola, who looked at subverting women's subjection in West African society, the role of popular music. And also Ugu and Sukuma, 2021, who looks at the roles of Christian campus fellowship in the fight against cultism in Nigerian university. So Christian campus fellowship is not just an organization that is just filled with spiritual or religious activity alone, but they are also involved in like Ugu and Chukuma 2021 talks about, they're involved in fighting against cultism. Sometimes they also organize academic training, academic tutorials for the freshers who are just joining and those who are there who are struggling with academics. So campus fellowship is actually a very vital organization, institution in the campus environment that should be studied. All right, by way of a methodology, next slide, please. I looked at 5 different fellowships: Ibadan Varsity Christian Union Postgraduate Fellowship, which I'm going to talk about later, Student Christian Movement, Mountain of Fire Miracle Campus, Mystery Campus Fellowship, CACIO, Christ Apostolic Church Youth Fellowship, and one of the largest Christian Campus Fellowship on University of Ibadan, which is within Christian Fellowship. That I interviewed some, I attended some of their meetings so that I can have a first-hand information in what they do. Now, for IBCU Christian Union Postgraduate Fellowship, I happened to attend one of the meetings one day. Can you go to the next slide? And then when I was there, the picture on the slide shows a female that was leading worship. And then at that moment, they were asking for backup singers. And then because it was a female leading, the guy there was reluctant for going to go and back up for the female leader. Whether it's because of gender, I don't know. Whether it's because of and that actually caught my curiosity, that because the female was the one who wanted to lead praise and worship. Then if you look at the backup, it's not that clear, because I have to take a picture at that moment. We have 2 other backup female singers, and then one male who was reluctant at first. He didn't want to join the backup singer at first. But if it were to be a guy, because that fellowship happened to be the fellowship I attend once in a while, if it were to be a guy that is leading or a male that is leading, the male backup is easier. It's easy for him to just join the backup singer and want to back up and that caught my curiosity that, okay, I am going to investigate this phenomenon that I'm seeing, which is a bit strange to me. Now, I looked at the fact that Nigerian University Campus Fellowship, Pentecostal Fellowship, offer a space where women can lead. That is for sure. Women are often music directors, they are choir coordinators, they are worship leaders, and they make significant contribution to the musical tradition of this fellowship. They are music directors in the sense that sometimes because of the availability, don't forget, this is an academic environment where most of them see it as a space where they are leaving their family. So some of them don't even want to go to church. They don't want to go, have nothing to do with religious activity. But some of them also, in my interview with them, they used to remember the advice of their parents, because this study was carried out in the University of Ibadan, and most of the students there are from the southwestern part of Yoruba speaking. And then this normal saying of like remember where you're coming from, make sure that the training we gave you at home, you didn't lose the training when you get to campus. So religious campus fellowship is like an hub, it's like a space for them to continue what they were doing at home, and sometimes to add to what they are doing at home, to add to it, because the Pentecostal fellowships on campus sometimes is quite different from the mother church at home. All right, so in my next slide, please. In my interview and my interaction with them, I discovered that women contribution as music leaders have a profound impact on Nigerian university campus. They shape the musical tradition of this fellowship, fostering spiritual growth, community building, artistic expression. Some of them don't sing at home because there's no space for them. The choir is too large. Some of them are attending parishes, they're attending fellowships at home that has large choir. So it was not, they don't have space to sing. They don't have space to lead worship or to lead praise or to even lead a set of choir members. So, but this campus fellowship gives room for them to lead, because sometimes the choir consists of sometimes between 10 and 30 choir members. Remember, it's campus fellowship, and we have several of these fellowships that are scattered. So these campus fellowship offer up opportunity for them to grow in their leadership etiquette, in their community building and artistic expression. But the question I ask sometimes when female are leading is that, do they add emotion and sentiment to worship? Because the picture I showed, for instance, most of the time when male are leading praises, they don't easily go on their knee to kneel down or to add emotion or to cry. But most of the time when female are leading, any little song, they're on their knee. And then they expect other congregations to also go on their knee. Now that takes me to the challenges that I discovered on the field. Can you go to the next slide, please? While they contribute significantly, they also encountered obstacles related to gender roles, cultural norms, and resource access. Now, again, what caught my attention and my curiosity was the person leading in the picture was on, she was on her knee. And I looked around, there was nobody else on the knee except for this person that was at the back, a female that was also on the knee. And in campus fellowship, you discover that sometimes some of these male, they have this dominant picture that immediately they don't even have to say, can we go on our knee? Can we raise up our hand? Immediately they are on their knee, especially when they are campus presidents or the music directors that is maybe the joint Christian music director. Because for campus presidents, they give them the tag pastors. They are not ordained as pastors, they are not anointed as pastors in their mother church, but as long as they are campus president, they have the tag pastors. In some schools, for instance, they have the term daddy, papa. And then in Obafemi University, which I had my first degree, they have the term Oga. And then if you are somewhere, for instance, you bear Oga Sam, and then everybody start calling you Oga Sam, Pastor Sam, and you have that influence. So, but for the female, they don't have Oga, they don't have Papa, they don't have Daddy. And so they don't, the mama is just meant for the women's or the sister coordinator who bears the mama. But when it comes to music, when it comes to music coordinators, music director, they only use the word sister. So when the woman or the female is leading, the response, and like one of the response from one of the MFM music leader, she's actually an assistant choir leader. She said a low response from the congregation, that sometimes not always in sync with the instrumentalists, or a slow response from the backup singers. And that actually supports the notion I encountered in IBC, where the backup singer, who is a male, who was supposed to join the backup, was reluctant to join because it was a female that was leading. And like I said, this is just a work in progress, and I'm expecting their contribution and feedback from everybody. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for saving time. Thank you. So we will take questions at the end of the final presentation. So the second presenter is Oluwabusola Bamore. She is a final year student. She just graduated 2 months ago from the University of Ibadan, Department of Music. She'll be presenting Music and Women in Redeemed Christian Church of God. Bamore, you have the floor.
Good day, everyone. I'm Oluwabusola Roda from University of Ibadan, and I'll be presenting Women and Music Experiences in Selected Redeemed Christian Church of God within Ibadan, Nigeria. Women has in a long time been relegated to the background in Christianity, ever since the arrival of Christianity in the 18th century in Nigeria. The first outlook of Christianity presented to Nigerians had an European and American outlook. Even with this, women were still relegated to the background. Thanks to the arrival of Pentecostalism in Nigeria, where women can participate in taking up leadership positions in the church. Next slide. Pentecostalism is a vibrant and fast expanding Christian movement with emphasis on receiving true faith in Jesus and manifestation of spiritual gifts, which is one of the prominent features of Pentecostalism. Also, we have researchers who have looked into Pentecostalism as a means of escape for the poor and the marginalized. So, Course 1995 he argues that Pentecostalism was mainly for the disenfranchised, those who have no reason to hope for a future or hope for something to improve. Now, this marginalization of women has made women to be seen as physically less or spiritually less than the male. Also, in recent times, Pentecostalism has allowed women to negotiate gender in ways that are relatively non-threatening to men, according to Hill 2015. So, women restrictions from leadership, a great disservice to God and the Christian community. Considering recent developments and even research from women in leadership in the church, a case study of Margaret Benson Idahosa, talking about Rosalyn Alajumoke, talking about even the wife of the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, in person of Pastor Mrs. Folu Adeboye, who has constantly channeled this energy even to other women. She constantly held meetings to help women have better versions of themselves and also help them develop in their chosen area of leadership. So research has shown that men without wives willing to take up leadership positions in Pentecostal churches are rarely successful. So this means that women are not just caretakers or home builders. Women are visible and vibrant in Pentecostalism in Africa. Next slide, please. So the Redeemed Christian Church of God is one of the largest growing Pentecostal church in Nigeria, in the world, with their churches in about 190 countries of the world. But despite the presence of this church, though the church under the leadership of the General Overseer has experienced great change in its administration process. And one of the changes include the inclusion of women in taking up leadership positions in the church. But despite the evidence of the church in the world, not much is known about their musical practices, the women's engagement in music leadership in the church. Next slide, please. So this research therefore aims to explore how women are contributing to music leadership in our CCG. It also explores the role that these women play, their musical training background, and the challenges they face as music leaders in our CCG. Next slide. So purposive sampling technique was used to select participants for this research. And it employed both a mixed method, qualitative and quantitative, where questionnaires were designed in simple language to capture data from the choir members of these women to get information on how these women are actually leading their choir, the approaches they employ. And also interviews were conducted with selected women choir leaders in our CCG to capture how they are contributing to music leadership and also the challenge they are faced as music leaders. So I have the hierarchy. Next slide, please. The hierarchy of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. So we have the national headquarters, the regional, the provincial headquarters, the zonal headquarters, and the area headquarters, then the parish. Now, note the colored aspect, the area headquarters, which is one of the fourth in rank in the hierarchy of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Next slide. So the findings of this research talked about the contribution of these women to music leadership. So it was discovered that these women function as choir coordinators, worship leaders, and praise team leaders. It also discovered that they create an inclusive environment for women to share their opinions. A case study was seen during the observation where they were preparing for a particular concert, and there came an issue. The women, the leader actually threw the question open to our members and allowed them share their opinion. And before the end of the conversation, they were able to come to a conclusion and the problem was solved, which shows that they actually more of listeners. They create room for their members to share their opinions. Also, from the comments gotten from the questionnaires, they discovered that these women are agents of social change and they are role models to their members. It means they serve as role models because the comments gotten from the questionnaire, about 75% of these respondents talked about the fact that they actually look up to this woman and then she encouraged them in diverse ways, aside from being a music leader in the church. Also, they ensure unity in conduct and in appearance, talking about their physical appearance when they come for service. Also, they contribute a higher percent to cater for expenses. For example, one of the women cited that whenever they have a concert or a special program to prepare for, and the expense that they have, the money they have at the point is not enough. What they do is they contribute extra amount to cover up for every lapses. So despite this, their contribution from research, from this research, we discovered that they are majorly allowed to be choir leaders at area level, which is the 4th in rank. An interview with the provincial coordinator of the Oyo Province 16 in Ibadan, the provincial coordinator, who is a male, says it is easier. He said you can hardly see women at provincial levels of leadership, but you will find them majorly at area level. That's why the previous slide described the hierarchical structure of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Next slide. So the challenges that are identified from this research: 1, lack of musical training background. One of the women interviewed for this research actually responded that she is a music graduate, she is musically oriented, but she complained of the fact that she cannot express herself musically to her members. She cannot tell them to modulate, she cannot tell them musical terms because they do not understand. So for everything she wants them to do, she has to practicalize them for them to be able to get it, which also make rehearsal quite stressful for her. Also, inconsistency of choir members. They complain of the fact that sometimes their choir members do not come for rehearsals, and then they give them responses like, I expect you to understand because you're a woman. Also, inadequate physical appearance. They mention of the fact that sometimes their choir members just come sharply dressed for rehearsals or for Sunday service. And they want to ask how they are able to cope this particular challenge. They talked about the introduction of robes and uniform, basically for everybody to be in unity. And also cited that balancing work and family responsibilities with their role as music leaders. Next, talk about lack of women representation at higher level of musical authority. Like I said in the conversation with Mr. James, when he talked about that, you can hardly find women who are occupying music leader position at provincial level, but you only find them immediately at area level. Now, these women, during the interview, discovered that they were not really seeing themselves in higher level of musical authority, mainly for the fact that some of them said they have to balance work and family with their responsibilities as leaders. So basically, they'll just let the men do it. And also, the image shown is one of the interviews from the choir leaders. She talked about that she has 10 choir members under her watch. But at the time of this interview, there were only 4 present for the rehearsal, which was the 3 you can see on the screen, and then the drummer. Now, one asked why this was happening. So she talked about, number 1, that they are not being consistent. And sometimes she have to adopt, like sometimes she has to do things to make them want to do what she's saying. So this brings me to the last point that says, they tend to put under pressure to adopt a more masculine nature in order to enforce discipline for their members. Next slide. So women, when being allowed to hold leadership position have never failed to be crowd pullers. And they foster an environment where everybody can participate actively and share their opinions. So therefore, it can be said that the level of women experience and effectiveness as music leaders is determined by the perspective of the church about women in leadership, the attitude and the support of the choir members towards their leaders, and also access to opportunities to be musically trained. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saving time. The next presenter is Segun Damilola Odisoro. He lectures at the Department of Creative Arts, University of Lagos, and he will be presenting music, conflict management, and Christian women in Lagos. Mr. Damilola, yeah.
So I'm presenting music, conflict management, and Christian women in Lagos. The study investigates the performance of music during marital conflict. 12 minutes, yes. Introduction. Conflict is an inevitable phenomenon in marital relationship. It could arise from any situation or anything. Causes of marital relationship include economic problems, ideological differences, gender roles, perceived ingratitude. Nonetheless, leaving marital conflict unresolved puts a marriage at risk. Now I'll go to the literature review. The very relevant literature about marital conflicts, the style of conflict resolution. Styles of conflict resolution are dependent on individual preferences and orientations drawn from religion, culture, and other influences. Studies have shown that men and women have their different styles of conflict resolution. For example, Sifia and Udiana 2021 said that men are likely going to avoid conflict, while women are likely going to be verbally expressive during conflict. This study didn't look at the act of singing as a form of verbal expression, and that's what this presentation will talk about. And the conceptual framework for the study is Ijade Loridowe, meaning that during conflict, songs can become proverbial. Method. Data for the study was collected through a questionnaire and oral interview amongst 10 Christian women. But for the sake of time, I'm only going to present the data on a case. And then, so the data she presented to me, the song she sang during a conflict encounter is Waba mi beru mi baba, ba mi beru mi dori, ma she da mi da bukata mi, Jesu oba iye. Translation: Woman, help me lift my burden. Please do not abandon me with my problems. Jesus, the author of salvation. Your friends would offer you help. She said somewhere in the music and in the data that ọ̀rẹ́ rẹ lè ràn ẹ́ lọ́wọ́ kó sì rẹ̀gùn tó bá yá, ọkọ rẹ lè ràn ẹ́ lọ́wọ́ kó sì rẹ̀gùn tó bá yá, Jésù nìkan la bá ní ṣe, kì í gbàgbọ́ tẹ́lẹ̀, aláṣepé lọ́lọ́run wa. To mean that your friend, your husband would offer you help and make you feel sense of indebtedness. That means you have to reciprocate in certain way, maybe through loyalty or other means. Now, analysis. The analytical tool for this study is thematic. That means I'm looking at phrases, words, or patterns that conveys meaning. And the first is reliance on God through supplication. Reliance on God is ascribed as the central theme on the song in general. For example, the first line of the song, "Waba mi beru mi baba," translation, "Come and help me lift my burden," portrays a model of reliance on God through supplication. In the second line, "Ma ṣe dá mi dá bùkátà mi," translation, "Please do not abandon me with my problem." It's a phrase describing an humble appeal for both to hand over one's problem to a capable one in the person of Jesus Christ, as stated in the song. In the same table as I have here, I'm sorry, I can't believe I didn't submit the PowerPoint. The same table. So kindness and the sense of indebtedness is another theme I've identified. This study I've identified. The third, which is in the third line of the song, it goes thus. Your friend will offer you help and make you feel sense of indebtedness. Friend, are all indications of the theme, which is about kindness and a sense of indebtedness. So the findings. This study reveals that the use of song during marital conflict is a subjective style of management, showing or reflecting individual dispositions. Now, the choice of song is predicated upon whatever has initiated the conflict or the situation from which conflict emanates. Discussion. Despite the fact that marriages are prone to conflict, this song I'm going to discuss how this woman. I'm sorry, I'm losing my thoughts. Okay, so I asked my respondents, why do you sing? And then she said that she views marriage from the religious point, saying that marriages are under attack in certain ways, and one has to pray and work as well so that the marriage can stand. And perhaps that could be the reason why she sang a prayerful song. So she also mentioned, I drew out from the interview that she sang because of self-defense. According to the respondent, she said, when I got married, I had understanding with my spouse. And after the normal altercation, I would recede into the kitchen or somewhere in the house where my husband can hear me still. Then I would begin to sing. She continued. She said, I sang this particular song because, she said in Yoruba, that means my husband has made me feel a sense of indebtedness. Why? Because he paid for a master's degree. And during the program, there were so many interruptions. For example, strikes and so many other interruptions. So she got tired of the program and told her husband, I don't want to do this program again. And so on. This study has shown that singing is also a veritable tool used in marital conflict management. So it recommends further studies into other forms of marital conflict management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, for saving time again. I'm sure we save time for question and answer. Right. So please let's take notes of our questions. The fourth presenter is a graduate student at University of Ibadan. Is Eniola Francis Sunday. Will be presenting Music in Pregnancy among faith-based maternity homes in Ibadan. Mr. Francis, you have.
So good afternoon once again.
Francis.
Now, at the same time, I was hearing someone who is in pain, laboring, shouting, screaming. Simultaneously, I was hearing some set of women singing, like you try to walk. It's good sleep. I have to stand up and check on the morning. So, what's going on here? And I was told there is a case with maternity inside my house. Okay. Why they do all of those things didn't really make much sense to me until when I got admitted into Best of Pardon and my level of knowledge increased. And I started to ask questions. And several answers were given, which I will. Motherhood in Yoruba society. It is the joy or it is the goal of every lady to have a baby to attain to the motherhood world. Because this can be tracked in the philosophical saying of Yoruba that says that which means he who comes to the earth without giving birth, it's synonymous to a snake that crawls through the rock without impact. And he who has a child possesses the world or entolomodulai out of my Yoruba. So the journey to motherhood starts immediately you get pregnant, you get married and you get pregnant. And from the point of getting pregnant to the point of delivery, you have to be under the watch of someone, an health expert. That's why some people go to the hospitals, why some go to faith-based maternity. Now, I asked why. Because in faith-based maternity, it is more of spiritual approach than medical approach. Despite this, they still have higher level of patronage from people in that same place. On Monday, you see them in their numbers, like around 30, sometimes 40. They will gather, they'll sing, they will pray, and all of those. I asked the question, okay, it is a faith-based maternity, and they are pregnant women. Are they choristers? Why do they sing? Why do they dance? Why do they exchange some kind of gestures? And like I said earlier, several responses were given. Moving to the several problem here, several scholars have looked into reason why pregnant women engage music in their activities, mostly in government-owned hospitals. Titus 2020 looked at the role of music among pregnant women in southwestern Nigeria, as well as Adedeji 2008 looked at the theology and the practice of music among the Nigerian indigenous churches. Adedeji 2008 looked at how faith-based maternity engage music therapy successfully. So he argues that concept of music therapy or the usage of music therapy is not explicit to government hospitals. That faith-based maternity also engage music therapy. And this can be tracked with the activities in the Old Testament, in the Bible. And that faith-based maternity draw inspiration from the biblical context in the way they engage it now. Christ Apostolic Church faith-based maternity, like we all know, says is one of the Pentecostal churches. And next slide. And Christ Apostolic Church is one of the churches that believes strongly in the doctrine of divine healing through prayers and the usage of water. This doctrinal practice has very strong connection with faith, with their faith homes. At the inception of this practice, it started in the year 1980, when the name Christ Apostolic Church has not really get to a point. They were named Precious Cornerstone. They were very precious cornerstone. That time, huge people and pregnant women, they both come to the church for divine healing, and they don't get healed through prayer and through the attention of devout men, Mama Baby, and pastors' wives. Those are quite very much experienced. They put them to be in charge of these people. And one of the reasons why they put this in place is to avert or stop these people from patronizing traditional means of giving birth, because that was still the very early period of Christianity being introduced into Nigeria. So they came up with another structure. Instead of it going to the herbalists for divine healing, since we now have any religion, I would believe strongly in this, we can get this done in our midst. And at the same time, it is believed that at the inception of Christ Apostolic, drugs are not encouraged. Even though the narrative is different now, drugs are not encouraged to be used or to be administered by anybody. So these pregnant men go to faith-based maternity home, and they only treat them, they engage them, they walk them through the journey of pregnancy, the point of delivery, strictly with the use of prayer and water. So the narrative has changed now. So, next slide. Musicking. Musicking as a theory was propounded by Small 1998. He engaged musicking from the dimension, and he argued that music is not just an object, but is a process. And in the performance, the concept of musicking encompasses everything that contributes to the success of that performance, and also the aftermath of the performance on the listeners, on the performer, on individuals, either the bouncer, either those that are cleaning the chairs, either those that are selling the tickets, in as much as the activities of these people contribute to the success of this performance, it encompasses, it falls in the concept of musicking. Next slide. This takes me to my findings. Now, I will take this concept of musicking to explain some of my findings. Like I said, musicking itself encompasses both musical or non-musical activities, which goes from performing, listening, composing, and dancing. I discovered that through music in faith-based maternity home, it negotiates safely the delivery of their babies with the celestial power. Sometimes they adopt some words, which you can say that is quite traditional. I appropriate this concept into what Ajibade 2007 refers to as old wine in new cup. For example, they will say, Abiyamo aye, Abiyamo ọ̀run, jọ̀wọ́ ṣe mí lálábìyè, kí n má sọkún ọmọ. The concept of Abiyamo aye has been in existence even before Christianity came on board, and is widely used among the Oloshe, those that are in charge, river goddess, those that engage in the worship of the river, and all of those. So they engage this concept of Abiyamo to ensure that to pray, to seek for divine spiritual intervention from power from the gods, to take charge the process of delivery, to ensure that no havoc or hazard happens during the period of women being pregnant or to the point of delivery. And also, I also discovered that in this faith-based maternity home, due to the socioeconomic status of the country, these pregnant women request, or should I say they profess, the kind of profession they want their kids to practice, or the kind of status they want their kids to fit into after being given birth to. For example, they will sing, Èmi ni wọ́n bí o, is a form of call and response. Èmi ni wọ́n bí o, èmi ni Olú ọmọ ń bẹ lókè lókè, èmi ni wọ́n bí o. Now, sometimes they infuse the Olú ọmọ, they change it to bí lọ́ọ̀yà ń bẹ lókè lókè, èmi ni wọ́n, bí dókítà ń bẹ lókè lókè, bí president ń bẹ lókè lókè. But funny enough, throughout my field work, I didn't hear them mention the musicologist in bẹ lókè lókè. This may be because maybe there is an initial existing notion that musicians or musicologists are not always rich. So none of them actually want their child to become a musicologist. However, during the naming ceremony of the baby, they will invite a musician. So moving forward, they use music to fortify themselves to ensure they have safe delivery. They sing, ọmọ inú mi gbọ́rọ̀ Olúwa, ọmọ inú mi, kind of call and response, ó yá máa yíra kó, ó gbọ́dọ̀ rí wa, like, my child, hear the word of God, rotate, do not be stagnant, you must not encounter any form of problem, you must not encounter any form of challenges. And also, in this place, I discovered that this place is not strictly for Christians. There are Muslims, even so to say traditional worshippers there, because I've seen people that wear hijabs participate in this place. So this space bridge the gap that religion has caused, because this is a practice that originally, if it were not to be that space, we cannot see a Muslim go to church on a normal ground, if not for some extra other practices, to pray to God for the safe delivery of the baby. But in this particular space, pregnant women who are Muslim, they go to this place and they use the name of Jesus to pray. And also there is power dynamics, because in Christ Apostolic Church, females are not allowed to be in charge. But in their faith-based maternity home, the females have the final say. This is contrary to the original practices where we have pastors there, and but in faith-based maternity home, the mama baby is in charge. Also, there is power play between the pregnant woman and pregnant women, the mama baby, who is the midwife, as well as their husbands. For example, they sing songs like Eba Michelle Bosa for call me, they do three bosa for their husband. But when it's their turn, they need not to share bosa for me. They do 7 bosa. And I asked, why 7 for yourself? Why 3 for your husband? They said they are the one carrying the baby. They deserve to receive more kudos. Perhaps maybe that's why child gets close to the mother more. Maybe. So, and also, lastly, let me just round up. I discovered that when they sing this song, Eba Michelle Bosa for Komiyu, it triggers from my experience, from my research. This was quite difficult for me to get through the help of my research assistant, who's also a pregnant man. I discovered that some of them did not participate. And I had some questions they didn't answer. So I went through my research assistant, and they made it know that they got pregnant out of wedlock. So where's the husband that they will give those out? At the same time, some of them do not have appeal. They are just there. The husband is not living up to his responsibilities, he's not doing the needful. So he deserves not to receive any gosa. So during the process of this particular singing of this particular song, they do not participate. They stay away from the whole process to the end. I would like to talk more about, I think I'm out of time. So thank you for this.
Thank you. We want to keep time so that we can, your feedback will help the panel greatly. So that's why we're trying. The fifth presenter is online. It's Dr. Glee from Federal University of Education, Okene. I will be presenting Social Belonging and Selfhood, Exploring Pentecostalism in Mawanka, Zumuntamata in Northern Nigeria. Dr. Glee, you have the floor. 12 minutes.
Please, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me, please? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Dr. Glee, like your background
Yeah,
is noisy.
can you hear me? I can.
Are you around generator or something?
No. Can you hear me?
Can you
hear me?
You can't hear what you're saying. Is your microphone working?
Yes, I've tested it. It's working.
Hello, Dr. Glee, can you use another headset or something? This mic. Can you speak to the laptop directly?
Can you hear me?
He has network issue. Okay.
I'm speaking to the laptop directly. Can you hear me now?
Dr. Glee, your network is it muted?
I'm speaking. No, it's not muted. I'm speaking directly to the laptop.
Dr. Glee, please start training that I should do his recording and then send before we finish, if you can do that. So I just type to start and do the presentation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Congo. Okay, they said those online. Do you have the Bluetooth speaker so we can put him up? So let's continue. Let's just put the audio on. Can you hear him, Sam? Punish him, Congo. Punish him. I thought it's all you. They said they can hear him. So can we? People who can hear him. Maybe I think the problem is here. Someone just come that they can hear him. Let him go ahead. Please. Yes. Prof, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Who will join from here? Just go ahead. I think he's here. Hello, they join me. Tell him to continue. Thank you. Tell him to continue. Tell him to continue. They can hear him. Two people just called and they can hear him clearly. So the network is from maybe the. So what's the problem? They can hear him clearly. We log in and start. We shut down with a picture that. Maybe in triangle. It's our network. It's not our network. People are saying, say we can hear you very
Rose.
I can hear you. Must be months. To call someone.
Hello, yeah. So from my own, it's like they said the network is the problem is with their own network there. You can hear me now. Hello. 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 Can you hear me at the center, please? This is Dr. Ing. Hello, can you hear me?
No. Sam, please, can you speak up so that we can hear you clearly from
Maybe we should join them with our own backyard to learn.
He's talking. He's talking. He's
Hello.
talking.
Hello, can you hear Dr. Ugli?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we
So,
can hear you.
should I continue?
Yes. Please mute your devices, please. Yeah,
Thank
you
you
can
so
continue.
much. All right. Thank you so much for giving me this time. I'm Godwin Ugli from the Federal University Lokoja, and I'm presenting on social belonging and selfhood, exploring Pentecostalism in Mawakan Zumuntamata music in northern Nigeria. I'll just go straight by telling us that my work it tilts towards Gilbert's adoption of Foucauldian concept of heterotopia. And heterotopia simply refers to the creation of alternative social space to discuss this particular research. Gilbert's research was on young women and Pentecostalism in Calabar, in South Nigeria. Aside from Gilbert, there were others who have also presented, who have advanced discussions on Pentecostalism in Africa. Bocho and Van Dijk, they actually tried to put forward the Foucauldian concept of heterotopia. Frank Abt, he worked on Pentecostalism in South Africa, and according to him, that Pentecostalism provided women with an alternative space to be able to live single life and then still continue with their Christian activities and Christian responsibilities. And when we look at all these and with others, Pierce worked on Pentecostalism in Southwest Nigeria. And according to Pierce, so I hope you can still hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, according to Pierce, that Pentecostalism provides women the space for emotional encouragement, and that in a way helps them to strengthen their emotional points and emotional stand in the society without necessarily giving in to the pressures of society. I am looking at Mawakan Zumuntamata and how their music fit into Pentecostal ideas or ideology. Now the question is, what do we even mean by Mawakan Zumuntamata? I think we need to get that concept clear so as to then bring it into a proper frame. Mawakan Zumuntamata, they are Hausa words that translates as Women Fellowship Choir. And the activities of this Women Fellowship Choir are prominent in most older churches that pioneered missionary activities in northern Nigeria. Zumuntamata as an umbrella, Mawakan Zumuntamata refers to Women Fellowship Choir, and that operates under the bigger umbrella of the Zumuntamata. Zumuntamata is Women Fellowship. So the Women Fellowship began as a coordinated organ in these churches around 1942 with a vision of promoting evangelism among women and to unify activities of all the groups existing in the different branches of the churches in the north at that time. Before 1942, there were independent activities of these women groups coordinated by resident pastors' wives. Originally, Zumuntamata draws her membership from married women, But now that is changing gradually because of the recognition that there are some unmarried people, unmarried women who are matured in the church, and then also in an attempt to boost their membership by reaching out to even younger girls to encourage them and prepare them to join Zumuntamata later in life. Now, when we look at Zumuntamata and in comparison with the Pentecostal ideology and Pentecostal activities, there are some things that, there are some of the activities we find generally that agrees with Pentecostalism in other places. Historically, like I said, it was established in response to the needs of women, to respond to the need of women in some of the churches in northern Nigeria, as a way of providing women's solutions to women's needs. So they brought themselves together in exceptionally or intentionally to attend to women's needs in these churches. Secondly, the Mawakan Zumuntamata and the Zumuntamata as a whole, they provide supportive evangelistic arms in the church. And so the Mawakan Zumuntamata or the choir, sometimes they go on outreaches, singing outreaches. Sometimes they organize concerts with the aim of evangelizing people and attracting people into the church. They also create a gender space that privileges self-worth and creative expression. Some of these women actually in the Mawakan Zumuntamata, their compositions are done by the women themselves. And when you have the occasion of attending their concert, what they call Bukin Wakoki. Bukin Wakoki simply means festival of songs. You have a whole day dedicated to singing from different churches, the choir from different churches coming together. All the songs they sing all through the day are composed by the women themselves. The women accompany themselves with their instruments. The women conduct the choir, and when they also have the Women Week, the women will even preach in the church. And so they kind of give self-worth to themselves and also create the space for the women to express their musical talents, their creative talents among them. Others still, they create a gender space for belonging, identity, and mutual support. So within themselves, the Mawakan Zumuntamata helps to give identity to these women without necessarily offending the men. However, we find that there are some points of divergence from known Pentecostal features. When Brennan talked about the Ionio choir in Lagos, she talked about the choir making reference to getting their songs through visions, prophecies, and dreams. This is different from what you find among the Mawakans Muntamata in northern Nigeria. Of course, they believe that their songs are gotten by inspiration, but they don't believe in visions, dreams, and prophecies. And also they don't hallow the personality of their leaders by exalting them so high and to sing about them, talking about their leaders. And also they stay away from this infatuation with fear, shame, power, and spiritual warfare. They are more traditional in their ways of worship and in their beliefs. And also, you don't find them also being engaged or so much carried away with prosperity gospel. So we find this divergence between the mainstream Pentecostal features we find in other parts of Nigeria, like southern Nigeria, and in other younger generation or yes, contemporary churches. Like I said, the Zumuntamata, they are found in the missionary churches like Ekwa, Kokin, Catholic, and so on. But in the contemporary churches, you don't find them there. Now, my key observations from here, from my research, is that although the group goals align with Pentecostal character, but the goals are rather set in the spirit of Christian morals and social standards, not necessarily because they have been influenced by Pentecostal character and the Pentecostal movement. No, they believe that some of these things which aligns with Pentecostal character is based on scripture. Secondly, they emphasize spiritual development above upward social and career mobility. And then finally, I also observe that gender self-expression and self-protection are complementary, just like I think Barry, the second presenter, talked about suit here. They believe that the self-expression and self-projection they exhibit are complementary and not competitive or confrontational with their male counterparts. Now, in conclusion, my conclusion about the Mawakan Zumuntamata and Pentecostalism is that while some features of Pentecostalism may be identified with the Mawakan Zumuntamata in a general sense, yet they maintain a unique identity that I best describe as pseudo-Pentecostal. Thank you very, very much. I've come to the end of my presentation. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Stop sharing.
All right. Can you go on my slide? Can some of you online can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Samuel Ajose. I'm presenting Gendering Soundscape in Nigerian Christianity, CAC movement why by the perspective. Next slide. The significance of women in Christianity has gained the attention of scholars in history, explaining what Christianity as a woman's movement. Robert 2006 illuminates how women shape Christianity in regions like Africa, Asia, and North America. Because of the spiritual, social, and artistic initiative of women more than men, Robert advocates that women be given a central place in the scholarship on Christianity. It is this agenda that I seek to pursue by spotlighting the contributions of women to the growth of indigenous Christianity in Nigeria through creative practices. More important, scholars of religion call for other methodological approaches that consider the sounding spaces of religion beyond scripts and texts for an in-depth appreciation of religious encounters. Scholars have addressed the agency of women in Christian expressive and artistic practices such as music. Despite their insights, of these studies, not much is known about how female musical groups are agentive in shaping the gender and sonic dynamics of Christianity in Nigeria. For this study, I explored the musical activities of CAC Women Choir Ibadan from the 1970s to date to understand how gender structures are performed and negotiated in Pentecostal Christianity. I asked, how does this group engender a paradigm of choral music that is representative of indigenous Christian and musical practices? Why is the sonic presence of this group so audible in the everyday social and religious orientation of people in Nigeria? By focusing on women's choral music, what does it mean for us to hear women's efforts, which have though remained muted in the narratives about Christianity and Pentecostalism as local and global levels. For this study, I generated data through interviews, archival materials, and from my many years of personal observation as a church musician, a researcher in Christian and Pentecostal music. I draw on theoretical and methodological approaches in the field of ethnomusicology, religion, anthropology, and gender studies to analyze my case. Next slide. The story of CSC Good Women Choir, hereafter Good Women Choir, is not complete without referencing the history of CSC in Nigeria. For want of time and space, I refer you to works on the history of the church. However, it is useful to note that the 1930 revivals of the church, led by late prophet Ayo Babalola, brought many people to church, including women. The concern of women to gather in fellowship and for spiritual growth led to the establishment of Good Women Association. Membership of this association is for adult women, and this association encouraged the use of spiritual gifts and natural abilities among women. Hence, Good Women Association Choir was created. Later, the need to have a choir perform at the annual convention of the association led to the formation of CAC Good Women Central Choir. So there was an association choir and then later a central choir. Established in 1973 as an all-female church-based choral group, the Good Women Central Choir had its membership drawn from different districts of the church in Ibadan. Admission into the choir was strictly for working or employed married women, Mrs., and a duly completed consent form by their husbands. And I asked, why must their husband, sign this consent form? And they told me that is because when they are away for performances or for prayers, the husband will stay home to take care of the children. I argue that this kind of membership approach references the cultural and spiritual deference of African or Yoruba Christian women for their husband, as the Bible says, head of the family, on one hand, and on the other hand, as a subtle means for women to negotiate male dominance. An incident led to the breakup of the central choir. So two choirs emerged. You had Good Women Choir by D.A. Fashoyin, and then another Good Women Choir by Obishesun. And these two groups recorded. The Fashoyin-led Good Women Choir has been vibrant in Nigerian Christian musical and Christian musical spaces for over 4 decades. Their desire to record as an all-female group was a strategic move to significantly position them within the Christian and popular music space. This group recorded twice in a year, Easter and December. In 1977, this group recorded their first album, Hallelujah. Before this time, the group under Association Choir had already recorded an album in 1973. Ojo 1988 remarked that the Good Women Choir was the first and most successful gospel music group to gain prominence in the Nigerian music scene since the mid-70s. These people produced about 25 albums between 1977 and 1995. I argue that this kind of musical output highlights the role of women in populating Yoruba Christian repertoire and contributing to the economy of Nigeria. The group traveled across Nigeria to perform in different churches, including Anglican churches. So let us listen to their music. Okay. Sorry. Because of our time, that's just to give us a soundbite of the of their performance. The next slide. In what has been described as the most enduring Yoruba Christian classic music in Nigeria, the Odun Losopi album, which means the year is going to an end, transcends religious, class, and gender boundaries, and endeared the good women to many people, particularly Yoruba. The song embodies African themes of spiritual work, material and spiritual success, and everyday realities of people. According to Ojo, these African themes are implicated in the preaching, teaching, and prayer rituals of indigenous and Pentecostal churches in Nigeria. Hence, the music of Good Women Choir, as I have suggested elsewhere, helps Pentecostal preachers to further ingrain Yoruba and Christian theology of warfare, health, and wealth. Not only did they sing about spiritual and material prosperity, they also sang about holiness and righteous living, which were prevalent themes among many Christian preachers and singers at that time. I therefore argue that the Good Women Choir performed the role of preachers actively through the agency of music. To hear the Good Women Choir is to hear the everyday plight of women in Nigeria, such as fertility challenges, childcare, poverty, marginalization, and oppressive encounters. Not only did they sing about women's problems, they also sang about societal and Christian ideas of women and motherhood. Using the Bible as an amplifier, their song also admonished men to be prayerful, loving, and responsible in their homes and society. What is the slide for me? Thus, I maintain that good women music is a discursive site for gender, both within and outside religious sects. Beyond performing spiritual labor, the creative product of Good Women Choir added flavor to Christianity in Yoruba land, as their music invokes the ideas of being and becoming a Christian and an African simultaneously. They draw from biblical texts as well as Yoruba oral forms such as proverbs, folklore, and command language, specifically Ofo and Ayajo in their musical renditions. I read this kind of cultural estate or borrowing as a kind of conscious or unconscious approaches by the Good Women Choir to promote and preserve Yoruba oral forms from going into extinction. Slide, the next slide. The sound of Good Women Choir is distinct in the Nigerian popular music space, both in its vocal texture and instrumental texture. Their choral organization is based on three-part design, but in two-part singing. They use local instruments, gongon, shekere, and others. Although the group is exclusively for women, men dominate the instrumental section of the group. This male dominance in the instrumental section of Good Women Choir further confirms the submission of ethnologists that performance on musical instruments constitutes a site of power and gender contestation. While factors including migration, aging, death have affected the group's membership, their sonic print is still hard and visible in Nigerian Christian and popular music spaces. Conclusion. This study invites us to consider the significant roles of women in shaping the sounding spaces of Christianity and Pentecostalism in Nigeria and beyond. While other evangelistic initiatives of Good Women Choir might not have been had, the case that I presented here reveals that music offers a viable means for Christian women to perform their everyday spiritual and social obligations as mothers, teachers, preachers, musicians, and culture bearers. So far, our panel today has interrogated women's spiritual practices in Nigerian Pentecostal Christianity in churches, campus, in health and domestic contexts. Since global Christianity has been described as a woman's movement, and Pentecostalism as a movement with sight and sound, our panel makes the case for an in-depth analysis of women's musical activities as a symbolic and solid site to read and hear the muted voices of women in Christianity at local and global levels. Thank you for listening. Okay, so we still have 10 more minutes. The floor is open for questions, contributions, suggestions for members of the panel. Please let's make it brief. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can we just do 1 minute? And there's no point, please don't let us duplicate questions again. 1.
Nigerian university aspirations. I don't know if we have presented a serious report on Southwest. Or the that I'm seeing Nigerian University campus fairs are being situated with age and maybe three or 4 cities of people. You can study from Northwest, Northeast, North Central, Southeast, balance something, but you don't more of Southwest because there are a lot of those showing. Yes, actually, the much campus fellowship. I know more of the North Central and Northeast. And then there is opportunity like AS, FCS, resources.
Okay, thank you. Number two, I think that's just a comment for you.
Quick observations and comments as well. I want to first of all thank all the presenters. Thank you for this panel and advancing discussions on psychology and Christian faith. Okay, to Samuel, I noticed that in the first slide you made a statement on the female leaders not being the owners of this church, but wives of the leaders. I don't think at that point, I mean, I don't think it's that preceded or that's not preceded again, because the female leaders in the context of the studies will not actually even be wives of the leaders. You know, fire leaders, fire directors, and all of those, they may not be wives of the leaders or so to say, just an observation. Then, okay, so to Roger, thank you very much for that presentation as well. So I like the fact that when you were presenting, you actually stated your topic as music and women is selected as against what is in the program, right? So which makes your work more focused. But then when you were talking about your methodology, I think you should also include selected RCCG churches, because RCCG is a global church now. So it should focus on the particular RCCG churches that you on the studies. And then you also begin okay, I like the findings, yeah, beautiful findings. However, since your study is focusing on music, you didn't talk about the contribution of these women to other women in sense of music. You know, you talk about their roles in some other things, but what role are they contributing to other women to musically, right? Then finally, you mentioned the issues and challenges. I don't know if possible, we can also infer some way forward to address some of these challenges. Then thank you. Finally, Mr.
Sorry, can you see them after now to discuss so that I can get some quickly? If there are issues you can take after now, you can discuss with the
Okay, thank you very much, presenters. Thank you for the I have an observation and I have a question. My observation goes directly to Viola Francis Sunday, Center for Music. Because I observed one of you alluding to a lot of the songs without translating them, and notwithstanding the fact that you taking your time to speak well to paper and then just to that, I think you are excluding a part of the audience who don't happen to be Yoruba. I think you should have us in mind whenever you present something. Name us with this next time. And you talked about music pregnancy, which I find is, and I think there is a part you have to ask using endeavor, which has to do with using therapy. Because by saying music is a music pregnancy, you are referring to that powerful therapeutic function of music in terms of pregnant women or the distressful moment that they go for. I think this but in how do you reconcile or how do you establish an overlap statement that will show us the next relationship connection between music therapy and that thing that talked about? And that, okay, that's right.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so quick one to Samuel. You talked about student fellowship and you focused on Southwest. And when you talked about kneeling down during worship, I began to wonder, would it be as the result of referencing God? That's why the kneeling came, or out of culture? You know, we are in Southwest. Would if it was an Igbo lady that was leading that worship, could she have knelt down? I think you should look into that. I think you should. Then for Yoda, you did not say no. When you said there's a certain level that women are not allowed to get, said the provincial level, I was wondering how true is that fact? Because I know I know in the team, I know there are women. A friend of mine was a provincial choir leader. And if you are saying that, that is, well, you have a claim to that. And there are strict regulations in RCCG that is saying, because I was dancing for quite some time, I knew that there were no restrictions, in as much as you are willing, and so you need to talk about that. And then for Mr. Francis, talking about faith-based, when you talk about music therapy, what comes to your mind is you are healing. So at what point, who is giving the therapy? Is it the midwife or the person who wants to give her? Because I think that at the point of the listening, your heart is not right. And you can be saying, oh, it's not possible. You are thinking about the baby come out. So you need to talk about, look at what point is the therapy coming? Yes, it's coming from. Is it from the midwife or from the woman who wants to give her? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just go ahead, please, and then after we'll take Dr. Sonia.
Special appreciation to all the presenters. And I was able to gain so many things from the discussion. I want to go to Dr. Sam Adejube. You mentioned that the course of your research, you discover that the student leaders in those fellowship they refer to as pastors, papa, and stuff like that, without ordination. And quickly go back to an experience when I was at school in 1998. I was attending a Christian fellowship, and the area pastor that particular fellowship belongs to came to school to come and ordain the student, the fellowship leader. And I think that has been done for some years now. We may need to do more research on that so that it will not be an assumption or generalization.
Thank you. Will that be all? Dr. Kusaya, thank you. One more and then we are done. Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. Please, let's make it quick. We still have 5 more minutes. Dr. Kusaya.
Your music, I did not get the correlation between your music and your music sample and the topic. So you're saying music public management and system women in Lagos. The person who sang that song that is a man. And then I'm not looking at the relationship between that music and your topic especially. And then does it limit itself to system women in Lagos? That song I was sang. That's a basic question. The other one I have just a comment. It is not one that I heard on that music.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the appreciation. First of all, I'd like to say that I don't know what that presentation was going on there. Therefore, she puts all music sections together. But I now this song where I was first coming, so there was not right by so that's the Lord answers. I like this. I entered and I met some people saying mostly I talk about in church, choir, music, and all those things. I want to what you said as a presentation that I understand that
evil things, brain twice. Right? If you pray, your brain wants to let me see the brain twice, your brain twice. Now we have women that pray, that saints, and they are doing good evangelism and everything. And let me link it on to the Redeemed Church. Sometimes we have that you're a good singer in the church. The same issue of usually given the role as a pastor to handle a church. I think that's what I'm saying. You I believe that some are just at their singing. Just allow them to do their singing. Do not transfer it. So, very good singer, and maybe you are doing very well because she really now become a great person. I think if you want to make the believers, truly you'll be consulted or seek your counsel or something. And if you don't accept, are you not a rebel or something? When you know that your strength is the singing and not the complete work as the preaching word. Thank you very much. This is a question or something.
Last speaker, and then we'll go on.
I'm sorry, my comment is really since the, you talked about children. You talked about how many of them felt like they had to take off with male visitors. So I'm wondering in your interpretation of leadership, well, the different types of leadership, gender leadership style, and also, as just leadership.
Okay, I think these are comments that all of us will take on board and that will shape our work, because we are still writing our presentation, we are still in the writing stage. So I want to thank you for coming, for listening, for your contribution, and for contributing to what will make our work better. So we want to say thank you for coming and have a wonderful lunch.